welcome to the Running on Grass podcast, where we look at the big picture down to the day-to-day on the ranch.
Yeah, we like to let whatever's growing make our decisions for us.
Welcome, Eamon. Just glad to be here at Ladder.
Yeah, I'm glad you and your family could come out. We've enjoyed having you guys. Spent a nice afternoon yesterday looking at your cattle and seeing them move around. It was kind of crazy. We used a piece of country we've never used before because we have these collars on them, and it was never something we could fence, but it was totally new, and you got to see him go do it.
Yeah, it was cool to watch him on the side hill. Driving out here, I saw the Panhandle of Nebraska, which is the driest thing I've ever seen in my life. Not a shade of green. So I was very pleasantly surprised when I got up here. I saw Battle Creek roaring and went and looked at your pastures that have had 30 days of rest on the sub-irrigated or the irrigated, and they just look phenomenal.
Yeah, I think we're gaining a little bit every year and trying to figure out something we missed the year before, and I think we're starting to get a little bit of the answer of how to graze the right way and do things. I know we've made mistakes in the past, and we had more weeds come in because we were learning, and it seems like we're starting to get on top of that and get the moves right and get the timing right and those things. So it's been really fun, and thanks for letting us test drive your cattle to do it.
It's been a fun project, honestly. I was amazed at what you had. So what do you want to hit on today before we talk about Eastco and their sponsorship?
Let's just for real quick, I checked out feeders this morning and they were at 370. So we're almost back to 376 was right about the high before the Iran stuff happened. So we're clawing all that back.
Yeah, we're working our way up.
Yeah. And so also, I think, let's just have a quick update. New World screwworm, 15 confirmed cases.
Yeah, that went bacterial at least.
Yeah. So I just read a little thing and it said, I'll pull up my paper here, $660 a head for treatment, I think, if you have an infected one. Wow. And that's probably to have your vet come out and, do all the things. So there's that. Globally, could cost plus or minus $1 billion. And you have 100 cow herd. You could get 10 to 30 cases of 3 to 15 deaths, depending on how active you are at managing them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
So, you start looking at 1,000 cow operations.
Yeah.
And that, 100 is a lot. It's like if you have 10 cows and 2 of them die or 2 of them lose their calves, you're like, God, that was 20% hit.
Yeah.
But, for 100 cows, 10 to 30, that's 10 to 30% of your herd.
Yeah.
That's real numbers, and you look at the same thing, you get into thousands, and it's not just the percentage of cattle that are in the case. It's how do you treat 100 to 300 cattle on a 1,000 cow operation?
Yeah, it's not easy.
And you have to have, how many vets would that take, and how much faster is it going to spread when it's that many cattle in a herd?
Well, in Nebraska, we'll just go sort them off, run them in the chute, and the vet will come in and bulk process them. A little bit different for you guys.
Yeah, I think we'd have to gather everything. And like we've talked before, some of my pastures, to get 100% gather can take us a month. Mm-hmm. Those last 10 often just, we have cattle winter out sometimes, and you hope that they show up in the hay meadows because you never could find them.
Yeah. So fortunately, not going to be an issue with you. Camped out in Eamon's yard last night. I think it got down to 40. It was fully insulated. We were snug as a bug in there, but I don't think it's going to wind its way up to Baggs, Wyoming.
Yeah, it's cold here year round.
Yeah.
Nice, cool. Hence, we're sitting outside on the deck with our pullovers on. So it's a little chilly here in the mornings and stays that way all night. But, well, let's talk a little bit. A guy named Jeff Kemp reached out to you. Tell me what he said.
Yeah, so Jeff Kemp reached out from Canada. He really wanted us to talk about our paths back to the ranch. He was curious about my path of being required to leave for 10 years where I went to California. We're going to hit on that. Eamon and I have some really good differing perspective on that, and I think it's going to be a lot of value for anyone who's trying to think about their kids and their pathway back. And that's going to be a big one. And then also going to hit on shrink and fill realities for yearling stocker operators. That's Trader Aaron on Twitter's suggestion on that. And then kind of the big one that we're going to get into after the Eastco bit is going to be nutrition content testers and how objective data could reshape the beef pricing. So Joe Salatin talked about this, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah, that all sounds very good. Going back real quick to 370 for feeders today. let's give a little shout out to Eastco. I think this might be a time people want to start looking at LRP.
Yeah.
And getting back into that game.
Yeah, back to all-time highs. If that's not a good excuse to do something, I don't know what is.
Yeah, so Eastco, quick thanks to Eastco for sponsoring today's episode. Eastco is a rancher-owned, rancher-focused insurance agency specializing in PRF, LRP, and annual forage. They do a ton of marketing, but they don't do a ton of marketing, but a lot of their team listens to the show, and they think that they're really excited about it, and they support us. We really appreciate that. Just like the topics we cover here are relevant to real boots on the ground decision makers, the product Eastco offers provide tangible benefits for ranching operations across the country. Check them out at eastcogroup.com or email info@eastcogroup.com to learn more.
So at the breakfast table, we were talking about that nutrition tester. You were reading that article from Joe Salatin. Give us an overview of what that tool is and what Joel was saying could come as a result of that.
Right. So, he was very upfront about he doesn't want to talk about things before they're out and being out ahead of it. And he said he met a guy in, I think, 2007 who came up to him and started talking about what if we were selling food based on what's in it, how much iron, how much zinc, getting down to the nitty gritty, and you could take out your phone, scan it, and just right there at the grocery store and say, okay, this carrot has, 2 parts per million of iron, where this other carrot has 200 parts per million of iron. And so it's basically saying you have to eat 200 carrots to have the same amount, or if it has 1 part per million, you have to eat 200 of those carrots to equal this one other carrot that will give you the maximum amount. And, I think people's diets are going to get down to where they're paying that close of attention of how much zinc, how much iron they need to have a day. And they're really going to, and your phone will be able to, or your watch or whatever is going to be able to read all that for you. But I thought that was very interesting because normally you're like, a carrot's a carrot's a carrot, right?
Sure. You'd think, a reasonable person would think, oh, I bet there's a 20, 30% difference in the nutritional content of magnesium. And what you said to highlight, it's 100 or 200x. Yeah. So it's not, it's slightly different. It's vastly different.
Yeah. You're eating an orange stick that has nothing in it versus possibly superfood.
Yeah.
So really interesting stuff that they're coming out with. And then let's talk a little bit about the beef side of it.
Sure. The beef side, I think, is going to be huge as we've seen that those consumer shift towards beef and really as a health focus on the protein sector. I can imagine a world where we have not most Americans or many Americans, but maybe the top 1 to 5 to 10% of Americans who are buying beef that is highly nutritious. And they're the ones that they're having a steak with their friends on their boat at their big lake house, maybe on their yacht. And, they're serving something that's upwards of $100 a pound as the raw beef. And I can see that scenario play out as we shift into this new AI world where, money becomes something that it has not been. And I think that plays into the beef industry. And I think that will filter right back into the cattle industry as well.
Yeah. Money's becoming a different tool for the average American where it used to be just the rich guys could, use these shares or their stocks, and they were, getting loans and money based on that. And it wasn't really real to them. And now I think with Bitcoin and different tools like that, the average American's money is fluctuating so much. And so $100 a pound is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
And like you said, top 10%, that's who would be interested in stuff like this. But when you see a spike that day and your Bitcoin went up and you're now worth $50,000 more than you were when you woke up this morning.
Yeah.
Let's go have $100 a pound steak.
Yeah. Why not celebrate?
We made it.
Yeah. So. And to be clear, I don't think that 90% of Americans will touch this beef.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah. And so people are gonna be like, oh, that'll never happen. I think beef will it will allow beef to break out of the commoditization. So don't think I'm being too radical in that. It's going to be like a jacket. You know what I mean? There are people who buy $60 jackets. This is one of them.
This guy.
Right here. There are people who buy $600 jackets, the premium jackets, and there are people who buy $6,000 jackets. There are people who buy $60,000 jackets, and I don't think it's absurd to think that beef could explore a similar pricing model to where it's, we don't go for, a really nice jacket's 2x, a really nice jacket's 10, 20, 100x.
Yep.
So, and that's a nearly commoditized example. Those $6,000 jackets don't do a heck of a lot better job than the $60 jackets. It is the wealth signaling that comes with it. And I think we could live in a really cool world where people would use their diets to signal that wealth.
How does your ranch become the Louis Vuitton of beef?
So I love this because I love Allen Nation. You guys know that about me. Allen Nation said that the beef sector is eventually going to shift into the wine sector, and there'll be broad differentiation among different cuts, different styles of aging. And Allen Nation also is on the record in saying that he very seldom was wrong. But he did oftentimes get the time and the scale wrong. And so this is really, I'm stealing from Allen Nation here, and whenever I do this, it's been good. It's been a good thing. So I am just borrowing from Allen Nation here. And I really can see, a Napa Valley of beef emerging in the next 5 years.
Yeah, let's talk about that because he brings that up about the wine tasting experience and the difference. And that's an international thing with wine.
Yeah.
And I think we get there with beef too. But I had an old timer tell me several years ago, the best beef starts at I-70 and goes north.
Yeah.
Something about the change in grasses. And in the Joe Salatin article, it talks about, I think, the mineral content and different natural observations and grasses up here in the north give that beef an advantage in flavoring, just like wine country based on soils. I think we have the same kind of soil things north of I-70 that create that. And I had never thought about that until the guy brought it up, and I was probably in my 20s and, very, very little stuck, but that did. And I thought now reading this morning, that kind of clicked for me.
Yeah, you'll notice on Superior, their region 2, I believe it is they include Kansas. To I-70.
Right. Yeah. Those guys get a little bump in the prices because of that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what do you think about that theory of, is that best beef going to be from this region up here north of I-70, or are the genetics and other things going to be able to overcome that for other parts of the country to be able to take advantage of those high prices?
So what Joe Salatin says is that it is the nutritional content of what they consume, so the soil health of what they consume, and also he said the diversity of what they're allowed to consume. So the healthier the soils and the more diversity that the cattle have to choose, the higher the nutrient density. And this isn't to take it from a 1 to a 2. This is to take it from the 1 to 200. And so you're looking at a super niche product. And again, I sell commodity beef, plan to sell commodity beef, but I really just can't help but think that the top 10% is going to be super niche, and it will be slowly finished on a diverse group of foods that will probably happen most of the time on the pasture and the rangeland. I don't think it's exclusive. I think a feed yard could replicate this using purchase feeds if they're very selective about where they get their purchase feeds.
And that beef.
Yes.
And those cattle.
Beef, yep.
Let's, just give everybody a little quick insight. This winter, you and I ate at a steakhouse.
Yeah, we did.
And they had a very expensive flight. It was $100 for the flight, but it was more beef than either of us wanted.
Yeah.
So we shared it.
Yeah.
And it was a USDA prime.
Yep.
It was an Akaushi.
Yep.
And it was an A5 Wagyu.
Yep. A5 Wagyu.
A5 Wagyu. And we both agreed that we thought that the Akaushi was the best product that out of the 3 samplings.
Yeah.
And I thought the USDA prime was as good a piece of meat as one would ever want.
Yeah.
And, but when you have those other pieces that were that much easier to chew, flavorful, but the A5 I thought was almost too fat.
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But the Akaushi just kind of hit that spot.
Yeah.
And so I think when we have that conversation, it leads us back to this conversation of who are going to be the people that have that Louis Vuitton of beef
Yeah.
that can charge $100 a pound.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, when so steakhouses they're already charging $100 a pound for the steak. So if they're buying it for 100, 200, 300 pounds, on the beef, they're going to be selling it for like $1,000 a pound to get their steakhouse margin.
Yeah, because that was like 15 ounces, the thing we had.
Yeah,
not quite a pound, $100.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There it was.
Here we are.
But you and I were like, well, we can handle a $50 dinner,
Yeah.
and I only need 8 or so ounces. So let's just split this thing. And so we're there technically.
Yeah. But I think it could be a huge game changer for ranchers in particular, which is our target audience here. And if you could figure out how to do this and to be quick on the curve, I think that there will be food companies that specialize in this, if they don't already exist, that will migrate into the beef sector. And I think they'll be looking for the super high quality beef. And I think at least initially they're going to be paying a lot for it because of the demand that I see, if we can turn a small segment of the beef into the Napa Valley style of sales.
Yeah. And just figuring out where those zones are going to be.
Yeah.
Because I have run Akaushi cattle before.
Yeah.
And I've kept some, finished them out. They were fantastic. I'm sure I didn't finish them the way that they ultimately could be finished to be that product that we tasted.
Sure.
But excellent product. But those Akaushi guys, a lot of them, the biggest guys in Texas at Heart Brand. Okay. And so that's where I leased my Akaushi bulls from. Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting that, that's a Texas product when we talk about the best potential grass and average animal being so good at north of that I-70 level.
Sure. But
is that maybe makes the value of either the land or the beef more because it's up in this region? Yeah. Exiting commodity style products like they do in the wine industry is a game changer. I don't know what property sells for in Napa, but it's not $1,000 an acre or $10,000 an acre even. I think you're pushing the $100,000 an acre stuff easily. But let's go back and talk about the wine industry for a second, where they've had this big dive because this younger generation's not drinking alcohol the way that our generation and older did. And I think that what's happened with all of us getting to where we have more prime today than we have choice, it made those guys that were the select Akaushi guys or the select Wagyu guys took away a lot of their thunder because now everybody is producing this great product. Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at the demand structure premium, the Wagyu and the Akaushi has collapsed. There's not much of a premium. And that is typical when you have the market go off the rails like it has. The demand structure just kind of collapses and you get select being, so expensive because people are value shopping. And that's what I found running Akaushis was at the beginning, it was a little better. Yeah. It was better than my good high quality steers that I was putting on trucks. Yeah. And then at the end, by the time you weaned them and did all the extra stuff, you weren't really making any more money than your good quality steers. And so I finally, in our operation, we said, let's just make more good steers. Yeah. And we don't have to do all the work. And we had that exact experience with GAP 4, being GAP 4 certified. In the beginning, it was fairly good. And we were buying GAP calves, starting them and selling them. And the premium just was not there to justify the cost and lost production. And same kind of thing, which is fairly typical in, when we've seen this historic run up where live cattle and feeder cattle have far exceeded the S&P 500 when it has been on a ripper. You kind of see those premium structures collapse. Right. And that's what Dan Kiltridge, the guy in Joe Salatin's article, said, is that he was disgusted by what's happened with the USDA and how they do organics and all these other things. And then you get into the same things that you're talking about, the gaps, and the price structure just doesn't fit into you. All that stuff's cool. And we all want to do a great job and be organic and raise natural calves or whatever your thing is. but you can't afford to do it at the price of going out of business.
Yeah, I would agree. I would tell you, just taking it back to the ranch, the meadows that I saw yesterday are the meadows that are going to produce that $100 an acre beef. I mean, just nutrient dense. The soils were super aggregate. You had clover out there. I mean, 20 different species of cool season grasses, and cool season grasses are higher in quality. What I saw was absolutely something that would produce some of the highest nutritional content beef on planet Earth.
And the only thing we can grow here is cool season grasses. Like we said, we got our sweatshirts or our jackets on this morning just because it's always cold here.
Yeah.
And, I don't, not to toot my horn, but to tell people what you saw in the soil yesterday when you dug up some actual dirt.
Well, first of all, I stuck my pocket knife in there, and there was no compaction, but it was so aggregated that I had trouble lifting it up, and it was just a root mass like I have very rarely seen. And the smell was great. It was the darkest loam I can imagine. I saw something that was very resilient and going to produce a wonderful nutrient dense food for the cattle.
Yeah, we saw some manure from 30 days ago that had been grazed, and that manure was almost totally broke down already.
Yeah, 30 days.
And then we found some other stuff, and we just kicked the top off of it, and it had all sorts of little creepy crawlies in there working on it.
Active soil biology.
Yeah, pretty exciting. And just, I want to go back. We've been doing this kind of grazing on this level really for 3 years. And we started with, what do you send me, 300 the first year? And I was like, well, I'll dip my toes in see what happens and try not to kill anything.
Sure.
And, now we have 900 in a group.
Yeah.
And they have already grazed that. And like you said, it's already coming back. And we looked at how much have been bitten off and what had regrown from that bite versus what was all new from those bites. And we went to several different pastures that were anywhere from 30 days, almost every week from 30 days in. And you could just see the levels change as we went to those different paddocks.
Yeah. And then that first one where it was 30 days, it was totally recovered.
Yeah. And we're going back in there either this afternoon or tomorrow, depending on how our new hillside paddock with virtual fence works.
Sure. Be fun to see.
Yeah. Tell them about my screw up last night in the water gap for all those yearlings.
Oh yeah. Just moved them into that new pasture, and they weren't focused on the water at all. And, which has happened because you guys moved them in roughly like 4:00 or something like that. Well, they all decided they were going to get a drink of water at the same time, about 7 or 8 p.m. and just wasn't big enough. Had some get pushed out, how it is. Just like Polly. Same thing with Polly.
And we did put a Polly around there because that's part of our horse pasture. And so we don't want the horses finding that virtual fence hole and going out into our alfalfa that was just grazed.
Yeah.
And so we put up an actual electric fence, and apparently the yearlings will respect a virtual, but not an electric.
Yeah.
So
always a learning curve.
Yeah. We're constantly, I'm going to put up a sign at the bottom of our ranch that says Ladder Ranch For-Profit Research Center.
Yes. Wine Glass Ranch is the same way. You want to talk about shrink and fill for yearling operators and just how that important that is, and then we can get into how we got back to the ranch and advice that we have for others.
And I'll let you kind of lead in with the yearling stuff, because I do the yearling thing on a level of I'm trying to breed heifers, and I'm not as worried about weights, except for in the beginning, what they weigh when I buy them, and what they weigh when we sell them. But in the middle, I don't really care.
Sure.
I kind of figure good things will happen if we do it right.
Yeah.
But you got to get them bought at the right weight so that they're going to be the weight you want when it's time to sell them.
Yep.
So I'd say those two dates, depending on when you buy them. So if we bought ours early, and this is the first time we've ever done this. We started buying in January, February, because I was worried there weren't going to be any cattle again, because I was going back to my original sources and they didn't exist. The cattle weren't there.
Yeah.
Whether they were keeping them as replacements or they went to town, whatever. Those cattle didn't exist in the normal places I was finding them. So I got a little worried, and I went ahead and started buying cattle. And then all of a sudden, this spring, it was flooded again, and I probably could have bought those cattle and saved a lot of yardage money. But who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew we weren't going to have a winter or a spring across Wyoming and Montana and everywhere? So first off, I just want to point out, I'm not on the level of yearling purchaser because you run steers, which is a totally different game than breeding heifers.
Yeah. So when you sell a bred heifer, you sell it by the head.
Right.
So really, it kind of takes the shrink out of play. And you're selling to other ranchers who maybe don't understand that as well. I can tell you as a stocker operator, the shrink in the fill will make or break you. So if you look at like a 10 weight steer and you sell him for a 3% shrink, and then also the water was a little bit dirty. And so he really just was balking at the water the day before you went to sell him. And then also he was in the last pasture for the last month, and he really wasn't that hungry. He was loafing by the tank, waiting for it to magically appear good water, which I've seen yearling operators do, or yearlings do. They, especially steers. So how much water can you put in a 10 weight steer?
Boy, I don't know.
Like 30, 40, 50 pounds. I don't think is out of.
Is that in a day?
That is if they are full of water. And yearlings, you can take a look at them. They're really easy to manage. On the left side is their rumen. So if their left side is full, they are full of feed. Their right side is whatever stomach holds the water. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head right now. But on the right side is if they're full of water, and you can see. And if you send a yearling on a truck for sale and it's empty on both sides and you sold them at a 3% shrink, I think you're off at least 10%, which could very well be your margin. So managing that fill and the shrink is super important. And it actually matters for calves. It's not the same just because you're working with percentages here. You can't get the same amount of water or feed in a calf and all that. But this winter, I bought a potload of heifers that gained weight from the sale ring to the feedlot.
What?
Yes. Not a lot. But I had the order buyer call me. Someone messed up and they sent calves, balling calves probably, and they probably didn't eat or drink or anything like that. They put them back in. They sold them. They put them back in. They kind of settled down, and I have purchased calves that have gained weight on the truck.
God bless you. Somebody's looking out for you.
Yeah, one. I did it one time.
One out of thousands.
Yeah, one out of 1,000. But man, I really do like the 1,000. But it's so important to get that right. And that is one of the reasons that Trader Aaron was reaching out. Was he puts his on feed a lot. But it's really hard to get that right, especially in a video scenario where you're not in control of a lot of the circumstances. And it's one of the reasons that we're shifting for sale at the barn. We can put the sort on them at the ranch. We sort them, ourselves, what we want to send to them, and can really get this sort of thing straightened out. And like I said, it will make or break a stocker operator.
Right. I think, we've got a couple notes here, like handling, timing, and nutrition management. And I'll talk more about the handling side of it. So out here in the West, everybody has their own scales.
Yes.
Whether it's portable or fixed at your corrals, everybody has or should have their own scales because our operations are generally large enough that the shrink, the loss from putting them on the truck to going to the scale in town, which for some operations is 50 miles.
Yeah.
20, 50 miles is not unheard of at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shrink that happens there.
Yeah.
And goes out the side of the truck. And
well, on a heifer, yes, but on a steer, you're collecting most of it.
As the numbers that we ran is if you have a scale at the house, it will pay for itself the first year.
Okay. Interesting.
On a 500 cow operation.
500 cow operation. Yep. Interesting.
It will pay for itself. So if you're a 250 cow operation or even a 100 cow operation, you need to run those numbers and see, is that pay off 5 years? Is that pay off 10 years or 2 years or whatever that looks like?
Yeah.
But I think that having the correct facilities and, having a bunch of panels set up, that's just kind of you use it once a year. I know that it's hard to pencil that if you're a smaller operator.
Yeah.
But I think over time you will absolutely make your money back if you put in a good set of corrals.
Yep. And I agree, Eamon, and this goes back to you and I just being so different. We've never sold a bull and calf ever. We're always selling yearlings, and just the extreme stress that calf experience as soon as it's pulled from its mom versus a 10-weight steer.
Yeah.
That just,
See ya.
yeah, it's like you can go and run up and pet the thing, and it's been on the truck 3 or 4 times. So I think what we're hitting on here is you're right in that, man, when you saw that bull and calf, you need to get him on that scale.
Yep.
Like he is stressed to the max. He's looking for mom. He is pissing and shitting and just stressed. And a 10-weight yearling steer, it'll be the 6th or 7th time to the corral and 6th time on the truck. So just different experiences.
Yep. And in our specific operation, we can sort 4 ways right there in our alleyway. So we'll send heifers one way, and we often keep our heifers, retain them, wean them, and then either sell them or keep replacements and get rid of what we don't want, or however we decide to do that from year to year, and it varies. And then, but the steers, they go straight through. We have an alleyway. It's not 100 yards from where the sort happens. We have a guy waiting there. As soon as he's got a scale full, he takes them up. They're on the scale within probably often 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They have left their mother's side. They have gone through a scale, and that weight is set. So we don't have a bunch of time that there's some calf that got pulled from its mother, and then once we get everything sorted, then we'll go weigh them. We're like, nope, get them off the mother, put them on the scale. Then if they want to go ball after that, they can go ball after that.
That's really smart weight management.
Yeah, and like we were saying, when you're sorting hundreds of calves, that's a big number that can just fall on the ground while you're doing your sorting, or your corral setup's not big enough or good enough or whatever. And then the other piece is the stockmanship and letting those cattle come through. When we're working cattle, I don't want to hear anyone.
Yeah.
And I want all my guys, and we've talked about our employee stuff a lot. I want all the guys that normally work in their position, whether it's at the sorting gate or in the back bringing up cattle. I want the same guy in the same spot. And a lot of guys think being the guy up at the sorting gate's the cool job, and that's where they want to get to. If you're good at your job in the back, that's as important as the guy at the sorting gate. And I don't want to hear anybody talk.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody knows what way everything goes. We talk about it before we start, just in case I've got some stupid idea and I want to take a calf and put it somewhere else because of X reason. But I don't like any noise. I like the cattle to come through. We work them, and we, just do our sort, and everything stays so much calmer.
Yeah.
But you have to have the right corral set up to do that those cattle can perform as good as you want them to perform in your setup.
Yeah. So good facilities and good people. And those two things cannot be understated, especially when it comes to this management of the shrink and the fill, and, just getting that calf on the truck with the least amount of stress possible.
Yeah. If they can walk down and they get away from their mother and there's not even a ball by the time they walk on the truck, you've done your job right.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to say it.
Yep. Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about how we both ended up back at our places. And you have a really cool story, and mine is not as cool, but it was definitely a roundabout way.
Yeah. So shout out to Jeff Kemp for reaching out for this. He's got a kid or some kids that he is thinking about getting back on the operation, wanted to give our perspective. I'll just hit on mine first. I knew that I wanted to come back to the ranch when I was 18. I've got one younger brother who was not so sure, but it didn't really matter at that time. My dad said no decisions were going to be made until 10 years. We were off the ranch with a college education and a short career outside of that. So I went to school at University of California, Santa Barbara, which is a party school. I had a great time, studied economics when I wasn't drinking beer, and met my wife there. And then we moved to San Francisco following college, and I had a short career in the Silicon Valley, 5 years, which is nothing in retrospect, but got some perspective. And again, where did my dad get this idea? Well, Alan Nation's idea was to have the sons leave for 10 years because it allows them to get perspective of the world and where their fathers are. A lot of the operators don't really get what where their fathers are, and it takes them a while to kind of access that. So that's kind of been my experience, and it was a requirement for my parents, and there was no option to come back before that. I do remember my dad told me, after you graduate, you're on your own. If you need to apply for welfare, I will help you with the paperwork.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Can't argue with Jeff Ribino hits another home run.
He was not messing around.
No. Gosh. Well, you know, and the frontal cortex is fully developed by that 10 years.
Exactly. We were talking about that at lunch.
Yeah, at breakfast this morning. Yeah. We're like, well, that's an old enough age, because then you kind of know enough to know.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a kind of my quick.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Went to University of Wyoming. Also, not a strict school in terms of beer drinking.
Sure.
And I was there for the better part of a decade, 5.5 years, and met my beautiful wife there. And we were able to. I think that's a huge advantage of going off to college is you find other people that are driven.
Yeah.
And my wife is definitely driven. She got two very difficult degrees to get, and I also double majored in geography and environment and natural resources.
Yep.
And we decided that, partway through college, I just started dating my wife. I decided that, you know, I wasn't loving school, and I took a semester off. I came home, and my parents said, well, that's great. If you want to come home, here's a sheep camp.
Yeah.
And you can live in a sheep camp and calve out some cows for us out here. And I was like, okay. So that's what I did. And I lived in a camp by myself and cooked and cleaned, you know, did all my own thing and fed cows and checked calves and shot some coyotes along the way. And then by the time fall semester came back around, I was like, you know, that college deal wasn't such a bad gig. So I went back to college and got 2 degrees. And looking back, I probably wasn't a college kid. And I have 2 boys myself, and one of them I think is very much going to be a college kid.
Yeah.
He excels in that scenario. And my other son is not so much. And I think he's more of like, I think he's a trade school guy.
Yeah.
Welder, plumber, something like that. And I told him, I said, man, I think getting into plumbing, those guys are going to be doing really well in your generation. And he said, I don't want to deal with people's excrement.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, you can go, and they're building data centers, and they need licensed plumbers.
Yeah.
They need good people that want to work hard, show up every day. You do that in your life, and you will be extremely successful.
Yeah.
The people that you have to compete against in your generation are not going to show up to work. If you can show up to work and you're smart and you know more than everybody else, you'll be differentiated. You'll be differentiated big time. So, you know, that's kind of the directions I'm pushing my kids, or hoping they'll go. But I think one of the other things that he was asking about is, how are we choosing what these kids are going to do? And so, or how do you choose what kid comes back, or do they choose, and all of those things? And what are your thoughts? Your girls are quite a bit younger than my kids. So we started our stuff as soon as my parents came home. I mean, not my parents. As soon as we came home to our parents on the ranch, we started doing that work with the lawyer. We were sitting in there and figuring out, you know, one, how to get the ranch transferred to my sister and I. Yeah. And then also my sister and I were then hanging in there saying, what are we going to do with our 6 kids between the 2 of us? Yeah. And so tell me where you're at, and then I'll kind of throw in my perspective of what we've done at Ladder Ranch.
Sure. So going back to Kemp's question, so my parents obviously had 2 sons, and Alan Nation's advice with that 10-year period was in particular for sons. Alan Nation just had daughters, but he picked that up somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I don't know. So I do have a few years to figure it out. My girls are 11 and 8, about to be 9. So I've got a few more years than you do to figure it out. I don't know if I'm going to require a full 10 years outside of Nebraska and agriculture. I really don't know. And I need to get to know them a little bit better first to be able to really know what kind of advice that is. I will say that the 10-year advice from a father to a son is, if I was going to be the best ranch manager on the planet, I wouldn't have done what I did. Leaving for 10 years and not being focused on farm and ranch management sets you back a little bit in regards to your farm and ranch management. It sets you a little bit ahead in your life experiences. So like Cooper Hibbard would be someone who spent a good chunk away. Cooper Hibbard actually went to the school less than 100 miles north of me in Santa Barbara, Cal Poly, and also had a wonderful time. Very similar school on the beach. But then he focused and went and worked on a bunch of ranches instead of going to San Francisco and the Silicon Valley. It's been a while since Cooper and I talked, but I think he hit at least 3 different continents where he was ranching. So I think there's a number of different ways to do this. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach. What does, for your kids in particular, what does their path back to the ranch look like, if there is one?
I'll say first, I think that what Cooper did is, and I know Cooper, and he is driven, he is smart, and he really knows his stuff. And if I would have gone to do something like what Cooper did, I would not have done a good job. I needed a little longer on the old grill to get finished. Yeah. And so I don't think that staying on or, going directly into what you want to be the best ranch manager on the planet. I think that you've gotten there and Cooper's gotten there on different paths, and you both know a lot of the same things. Mm-hmm. You guys are both grass nerds, mm-hmm. and I'm behind on that mm-hmm. because I would say at 40, I'm getting into that stuff. And you and I creeped around yesterday, and I was asking a bunch of questions about grass, and I'm glad I have a guy like you and a friend like Cooper to call and say, hey, what are you thinking about this? Or what's this kind of grass do? And so that's a great opportunity for me, but I was slow to come to that stuff. And I focused more on the cowboy stuff first. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say buckaroo by any means, mm-hmm. but I love to work cattle. I love to watch cattle work around when you're on horseback, especially. And you and I talked about this when we were out working cattle at your place. On 4-wheelers, you can't see the other guys. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to tell what the cattle are doing because you're below them. Yeah. And on horseback, you're up above them. You can see when you know what the front's going to do, you know what the back's going to do. Yeah. And to me, that's it's poetry in motion. Yeah. Working cattle, especially with a good crew that know how to be and where to be at the right times. And so I would say I enjoy the livestock side more, and I'm slow coming to the game on the grass side. Yeah. So very, very different perspectives. And I think that's one thing that I would try and teach my kids is find what you love, and then the rest will come.
Yeah, and I think I'm speaking for Cooper here. I never took a class about grass.
Me either.
At all. But it's my favorite part of ranching, and so I'm not as good as anyone, but for someone who never took a single class on grass management or grass ID or all of that, I can hold my own.
Yeah, and I know what cows eat. I know what sheep eat. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's called. Yeah. But I can tell you what's good, what's bad, what's toxic, what's not. Yeah, I can, like my mom said, every animal she learned something from, it was a dead one. Definitely. And so toxicity will really teach you some things. Yeah. You better figure it out fast. So going back to the kids, so my sister and I have put a lot of thought and time into meeting with lawyers and figuring that out. So in meeting with our lawyers and figuring out how to get these kids into a position to be successful, I think that getting them in the conversation early. So Ren is 11. He's the youngest of the 6. Ren is 13. McCoy is 15, and Ren's the youngest. And then the oldest one is, I think, 22 now. Okay. And so, yeah, she's newly 22. So we go from 13 to 22 years old between the oldest and the youngest. And the oldest is in law school. Mm-hmm. She is a whiz, went through college quickly, had a bunch of it done when she graduated high school. I think she was valedictorian. One of those that's just, she excels at the school situation. And then all the kids, there's not a tough one in the bunch. I mean, they're all really good ones. And I think any one of them could come back here and be successful if they wanted to be or not. They're all smart enough to be successful ranchers. Yeah. But is that their calling? Is that their thing? Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. The oldest one we don't know. and then all the way down to the bottom. Ren's the only one that I'm like, yep, I think that kid's going to be a rancher. It's a good fit for Ren.
Yeah.
And but figuring out how to motivate him and get him. And this morning at breakfast, we talked about, since you did a big trip before you came home.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm super jealous of it, because my wife and I wanted to do a 1 year travel around the world, just work from place to place and have enough money to get to the next place, until we finally decided that we were too broke and needed to come home and get real jobs was the goal.
Yeah.
And then we got out of college. We had student loans and had to get paying on those. So going and leaving for a year to go be broke for a year was not in the cards. And that's my worry in sending a kid directly to college, is that, one, they get debt, or two, they get a job, three, they, get married and have kids. Whatever they do, none of those are bad things in the picture of lifelong learning.
Yeah.
But I think to be able to go to Australia, Ren really wants to go to Australia and do some outback stuff, and he's punchy and he would excel in that scenario. And Megan and I are like, do we send him to college and have him, or trade school, whatever, and have him get into these scenarios of debt, wife, kids, work? Because if he does that, then the likelihood that he's going to get that time to go and do that 1 year sabbatical is going to be tough.
Yeah.
His life takes over.
Yeah, it does. I will say the downside to sending your kid away for 10 years is I kind of figured out high agency a little bit. It worked well. I did well in school. I did well after school. We survived the '08 crisis. Both my wife and I did. I talk about that's our first route. We ended up taking a year on a honeymoon. We lived on $60 a day as we drove to Tierra del Fuego. And, if my dad just would have sent me to UNL and took me home, he kind of would have eliminated that little wanderlust that I developed in California.
Right.
So I'm not going to say it backfired, but it definitely created a version of Logan Pribino that's not afraid to do some bolder things than average. So, how that applies to Ren, certainly let him live that out. I have some friends that left farming not due to bankruptcy, but trying to scratch an itch that they didn't ever get scratched. And I don't have to do that. And that does help. But for sure, allowing your kids a little bit of freedom and a little bit of goof off time and a lot of grace, I think is a great thing.
Yeah. My time in college was absolutely necessary to, work out that screw off time. And met a lot of friends, had a lot of contacts. Things have been great for me, and college was very good for me, even though I was probably more of a trade school type of kid.
Yeah.
And but like I said, met my wife, and everything has worked out very well, and I have no complaints. But there's definitely some places along the way that I wish I could have, taken a little more time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. If you're a middle-aged white male that's managing a multi-generational farm or ranch, you probably think that if you die, the place is just going to implode in a week. And I'll tell you, this is Dr. David Cole. He said JFK was replaced in 15 minutes. He was the leader of the free world. It took 15 minutes to get his replacement signed in. If you think that the life is not going to continue after you're gone, I have bad news for you.
Yeah, that's right. And that's good advice for anybody in any job.
Yeah.
If you think your job doesn't exist without you, just don't show up for a week.
Yeah. They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
And that's good advice for, we were talking about our target demographic and it's how it's maybe the younger ranch managers and, maybe in their 30s and still kind of have a bit of that where, this, I am this thing. And I'll tell you, the older you get, the more you realize that, that is not necessarily true. If you can separate your ego from your business or / farm and ranch, it will pay you dividends.
Yeah, and I'd like to get in a little bit. I don't know why it's such a secret in agriculture, and we don't talk about family dynamics or any of that stuff. And I'm very fortunate. My sister and I work very well together. She's more on the book side, and I'm more on the day-to-day management side. and it's worked very well for us.
Yeah, you guys have a really good partnership, sibling partnership.
Yep, and she's 7 years older than me. I mean, we're obviously siblings, but we didn't grow up together in that way. She was so much older. She was out of school before I was in June. I was just starting junior high, and she was gone.
Yeah,
and went off to college. So we didn't spend as much time growing up together. And but our parents were very good about keeping us all as friends and family. My dad was a huge family guy.
Yeah.
Like everybody come over, we'd have dinner all the time together. Just a family guy. Grew up in a Catholic household.
Yeah.
You know, liked everybody being around.
Sure.
And so I think that was really important in our growing up, and we're not giving that to our kids the way that he was so good about giving it to us. And
Yeah.
I think we need to be better about that and getting back to having, you know, at least weekly family dinners. And we would do it 2 or 3 times a week when my dad was around. He was like, come up, watch the game. And then it turned into a big, you know, oh, I made spaghetti and a bunch of that stuff too. But when we met with the lawyers, the things we talked about were, how old do these kids need to be? Because they need to make a decision. My sister and I, we love ranching and it's good, but we also have hopes of, you know, getting out of the cold a little bit more in the wintertime.
Sure.
And it'd be great to have kids back here. And we don't want to be those 70-year-old people that haven't passed on the ranch and the kids haven't seen the books.
Yeah.
We want to be, our parents had us in the books from the minute we got home to the ranch.
Yeah.
They were never afraid to say, hey, you know, this is what this costs. And this is, if you make this decision, this is what it'll cost, good or bad.
Yeah.
And here's what we pay for, you know, here's how much we spend on fuel every month, all of those things. So I think that's very important too, is to get them involved. Like, then they at least have some perspective of, do I want to run this monster? Or, you know, however big your place is, it's a monster in your eyes because that's your world.
Yeah.
And whether it's you're running 10 goats and you're doing some intensive grazing thing, or you're just trying to keep them in, or you're running a 2,000, 5,000 cow operation and you're on a multi-generational place, it just is, everybody's operation is their own monster.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters what size it is.
No, I always say bigger ranch, bigger bills. That's the only thing guaranteed to you by growth is your bills will grow.
Yeah. I was telling Logan what my trucking bill coming home from his house was this morning.
It's obscene.
It hurts. It hurts a little bit. And luckily we did it right in the middle of this Iran deal. So we got the really topped out on the prices too. Thank you again to this administration. So let's visit a little bit. So we talked about 25, 26 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The kids need to have made their decision.
Yep.
Are you going to go be a lawyer? Are you going to go be a plumber?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your thing is. And if you get out of college and you're 22 years old and you want to go work for a few years, great.
Yep.
But you need, by the time you're 25 or 26, you need to have said, okay, I'm coming home or I'm not.
Yep.
And hopefully that works for my sister and I. None of them are there yet. And we've got a long time till the youngest. So a lot of people can pass on by and say, you know, all the kids can just be like, no, not my thing, not my thing. But when it gets to Ren and he's the only one left, we might be like, boy, maybe we need to reevaluate this thing because we need somebody to come back here.
I don't think it'll be a problem.
Yeah.
I do appreciate how you have that deadline established. And it's also very similar with what my dad set up. It was like, you know, we're not even going to have this conversation until you've been gone for 10, which is 28.
Mm-hmm.
So just a year or two different than you guys. And you know who you are at that point, and it is a good age to make some lifelong decisions.
Yeah, and I'd like to put out that I did not plan on coming home to our ranch. When I left out of high school, I did come back. My dad was so awful in the way that he was all the time. Hey, can you come back over the weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Can you come back and help us? And you'd be out partying until 2, and then you'd go sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and you'd be home to, you know, drive home in the dark to go help sort calves or whatever. So, you know, it was great because the camaraderie with the guys was still there, all the employees they had. So we were all still friends and buddies, and we worked together. And I did come home some summers and help. And I spent one summer working in Washington, D.C. as an intern for a U.S. Senator. I worked at a ranch that runs my cows in the winter now. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of good things that I did too, besides just working on the ranch. But I did not plan on coming home and being a rancher. I don't know what I was going to do, but I was like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. And then the opportunity just kept being there. And my dad was so good about, you know, keeping you in the family, bringing you back. And ultimately this is where I ended up, and I don't regret any of it. I always say I've gotten to go, all over the world because of Ladder Ranch.
Yeah.
Because it got me involved in the Beef Council, because it got me involved in U.S. Meat Export Federation, it got me involved in American Farmland Trust. All these different things. I've gotten to see things that most people never see. I've been to almost every state, been to most continents.
Yeah.
And Ladder Ranch did that for me.
Yeah.
Had I gone and done something totally different. So what I always say is this place will take you.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you also have to mention that we came of age in the 90s, which was one of the worst decades to ranch.
Yeah.
It was a century low for beef demand. 1996, 1997 was. And so, man, we really didn't watch
Excitement.
Yeah. Yeah. That played a lot psychologically to our generation, to where, we didn't really not watch our families excel financially in the cattle industry. And, we're in a different time today.
Yeah. And we look at the numbers of people on their ranches, and these huge farm bankruptcies, ranch bankruptcies right now. Even in these great prices, there's still ranchers going broke.
Yeah.
And some of them didn't get their estate planning done.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are older folks that just say, you know what, we don't have any kids.
Yeah.
And we don't know, nobody's here wanting to take it over. Prices are good. Land's worth as much as ever been worth. Let's make a little money, and somebody else can run this place. So there's a lot of different reasons that things are changing hands. And I think I've said it before, this is going to be the largest land change in the United States since the Homestead Act.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of it. It's not one of those things that's coming anymore. It's half executed.
Yeah, and what's scary is I think a lot of the land being purchased is wealthy outside money that doesn't know anything about ranching. And we see these large places that, I know a place that could run 2,000 to 3,000 mama cows, and they're running a few hundred head of cattle.
Yeah.
And it's because the owner doesn't need to make money at it.
Yeah.
It's a place for him to go enjoy.
Yeah. That's increasingly becoming more prevalent in our industry, and how ranches are managed. Is that going to have any effect on the future of ranching?
Well, we go back to what we were just talking about. We've got our kids are seeing in the excitement. Like we've said, you and I have seen more good times in the last 10 years than most ranchers have ever seen.
Yeah.
And you're an 80-year-old guy, and this is finally things are looking good.
Yeah.
And so our kids are probably doing more than we did, getting to go do more things than you and I did as kids, because there just those opportunities weren't really out there. And we were joking they had a rodeo parade thing the other day, and they over the hill in encampment, and I went to it one time when I was in high school.
Yeah.
A girl invited me to go to their dance, and I went over there, and that was the only time I'd ever been to their thing. And that's 45 minutes away from my house.
Wow.
And people were like, why didn't you go to that? I'm like, we worked.
Yeah.
Like, you got up and you moved cows, or you put up hay, or you did both in the same day, but you didn't go over and go take a weekend and go screw off just to go screw off. There was things to be done.
Yeah.
And I know, good, bad, or otherwise, my kids spend a lot more time screwing off than I did.
It's just different.
Yeah, it is. So, what do you want to talk about on this next time? I think we've done a good job of explaining kind of where we come from and how we ended up and what our plans are.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if you have anything else to add to that and what you think, or have any ideas for your kids, and then I think we ought to kind of tie this thing and put a bow on it.
Yeah, I really don't. My takeaway is I've got a few years, and I need to get to know my two daughters a little bit better before I really draft a plan, but I'll be very intentional about it. But that's kind of my takeaway. How about yourself?
The only thing that I think is super important is do something today.
Sure.
Because even though your job will be replaced by somebody in 15 minutes, if you die and there's not a plan, then whatever plan you were hoping to execute is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe you had the best plan.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because you're not here to put out a plan.
Yeah. Write it down.
Mm-hmm. Even if you write it down and put it in your desk, at least your wife has something to start with.
Yeah. 100%.
So I guess that's my advice to you. And boy, everybody, please reach out to us.
Yeah.
And let us know if you have questions, ideas, plans. My plan isn't the best plan.
Yeah.
But if you have a good idea, boy, I'm all ears, because we're all shooting from the hip here, trying to figure out how to get these on to the next generation and get people on the land. And I'm not saying I have the golden ticket here and this is the right way to do it, but this is all I know to do at this
we're
point.
willing to share.
Yeah.
And that's what makes us unique.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with our industry is we're all too tight-lipped, and that's why we don't have anybody back on these ranches, is because nobody talks about it.
Yeah. Well, glad to share.
Yeah.
Well, Eamon, let's put a bow on it.
Yeah, so we talked about better data and on what's going to happen with our food, and is it going to be expensive? Are we going to know everything that's in it? Better processes on shrink and fill and how to handle livestock, and get them fed up and have them set for success for your ranch and for the buyer. And then also what we did with our time away from the house and what we are planning on doing next. So I think we covered
a lot this episode.
We did cover a lot.
And it got better as it went on.
Yeah, it was deep stuff.
Yeah.
Deep stuff. And I think that's important to get in that stuff. You have some thanks you want to throw out?
I do want to shout out to Kemp for that topic. I think it was one of our best ones in the last couple of years. And John Haskell brought up to us about SOP management. He said that SOPs allow for more autonomy. And he was right in that. And that's something we really didn't explore. But I think SOPs are going to be something that we kind of continually hit on. But that's all I had.
Yeah, well, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And I've just recently gotten onto Twitter. And Logan, you're more into Twitter.
Yeah, hit me up on Twitter if you have any suggestions for us. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, keep running on grass.